Hi, everyone. Finally, we get to have our other talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I am one of your two hosts, Nor Kyle.
And I'm somebody else. Oh, I remember. I'm Mushtaq Ali.
Thank you. Thank you for cooperating this time. All right. So thank you for joining us. This is the Nine-Sided Circle. We typically do one talk a week every Saturday evening, 6:30 Pacific time. But today, this is our other talk, which is our once monthly, for us, morning talk. We do this at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time, and this is the one we do to accommodate people who cannot join us at our usual time. That's people in Europe, people in the Mideast, and other places. If this time works better for you, that is wonderful, and we're so glad to have this opportunity for you to join us. And if you'd like to join us at our evening one, you're welcome to do that too. You can join us at both. And yeah, we do
At
this
no extra
every
charge.
free. Yes.
Yes.
So this is done. This other talk is done every third Sunday of each month. So we'd love to have you catch us next month if you'd like. But in the meantime, yeah, any announcements right now?
No.
Yeah, I guess, I'm just gonna offer, a no pressure reminder that we do this work for free, and we do often rely on donations and our one-on-one sessions to support this free work that we do. And I'm keeping it sort of brief because we just got over COVID, so no fancy talk today. Yeah, thank you for
But we
being
do
here.
have a big announcement.
Oh, do we have a big announcement?
We have a
What's
big
that?
announcement. As of this morning, we have
Oh,
exceeded
yeah.
2,000 subscribers.
Yay!
Yay.
Yes. So we've been congratulating each other
Yeah.
for finally getting here. It's been a long time coming, but it's been organic growth, as I like to say, which means that we don't do advertisements. We are just growing this week by week, doing what we do, which is what we're doing right now.
So to all of you who are crazy enough to hit that subscribe button, thank you.
Yeah, it means a lot to us, and it's a huge contribution towards our mission, I guess you could say, which is to uh, help people wake up to become more aware of themselves and their experience in this world and their relationships with other beings, and to experience, not a superficial sense of fulfillment, but a sense of really being here in one's life. And that's priceless. So thank you for working through that with us, because it is quite a journey. All right. Other than that, yeah, like, comment, subscribe, you know the deal. I'm sure you've heard it a million times. So again, thank you for being here, and let's get started. So we have a topic that is, I guess we could say, sort of raw for us right now. And we have covered the subject of hazard before, but this is kind of a revisiting of that from the vantage point of being in it, shall we say. So, hazard.
What
Yeah,
is hazard, my dear?
hazard. I guess we could define it kind of like, I know one phrase we often use is God playing dice with the universe. So this is kind of the built-in randomness and chance that we experience every day. Sorry, I keep hitting my microphone. And I don't know how much you guys know about the Tower card in tarot. This is a card that often terrifies people because it looks like Armageddon, basically. You got a tower, you got lightning striking, the clouds are overlooming, you have people falling out of the tower, everything's in flames. It's just it's often a card that provokes a feeling of terror or like impending doom. And the random happenstances of life often provoke that feeling in us.
Yeah. And this is when hazard hits. The way I know that hazard is hit is because you look at it and you realize that there is no coming back from it. You can't do anything to like take everything back and do it again or anything like that. Life just blows up in your face. Sometimes it's small, sometimes it's big. And it has a quality of inevitability about it. And it's important because without hazard, there's no real growth. But it's never fun. And it feels like the world is falling to shit around you. And everybody goes through this. It doesn't matter if you are the greatest saint in the universe. Every now and again, God is going to kick you in the ass. And it's not like God has something against you, because he does this to everyone. There is no escaping it. And the idea nobody gets the perfect life. Nobody gets a life with no bumps. And if you had a life with no bumps, you would have a life with no opportunity to really transform. So, hazard is the 1% of randomness in the universe that's just waiting to drop a safe on your head, or a grand piano, depending on which Warner Brothers cartoon you like best. Yeah, but when you see the Acme truck driving by, you know life is going to get interesting. So let us tell you about our week.
Yeah, let's start
because
there.
this is a perfect example of it, and we are going to let you have a window inside life over here, so that not because we care one way or the other, but because it's instructive.
I would say it's a little vulnerable to share that.
It's a little vulnerable,
Yeah.
yeah, because it proves that we are not protected from hazard.
We're living
So
everyday lives over here.
yeah. So I've been living in this place for 4 years now. And we realized a little while ago it was time for us to move on into bigger and better digs, because this was meant to be really temporary. And then COVID hit, and it had the advantage of being isolated from everything. So we stayed protected.
Yeah, I would say we got a little complacent too. That's a word
Yeah.
I would use. Like, we got comfortable in our shrugging at our situation. It wasn't great, but it was workable.
Yeah. So we had decided that we were going to find a new place to live when we returned from Sweden.
Which is upcoming next month, as
Yes.
Some of you will see there. So
yeah, we're excited about that. So here we are, and we had just gotten up, and we're doing the usual things that you do when you just get up, when there comes a knock on our door. Bang, bang, bang. And it's our landlord.
He's in the middle of working with someone when this happens. So
Yeah, that's
there's
right.
that.
I forget who I was talking to, but
Was it
it was
Alpha?
interesting.
Or
So anyway, I get off the call with them and we go out, and it turns out that somebody, he's been doing work on the front house. We live in this tiny little back house here, and then there's this big front house, part of which he rents out as an Airbnb, part of which he's renovating to be a new apartment. And he tells us that somebody has ratted him out to code enforcement. It turns out he's been playing hard and fast with the rules for construction. And the code enforcement agent is showing up in an hour. Yeah.
so yeah, for code enforcement, this is like housing, building code type stuff.
Yeah.
And this is the
And
kind of
our
stuff,
house,
yeah.
yeah, our house is not entirely legal,
We
as is most everything around here. So we absent ourselves so that we don't appear to be there. And we get back. Turns out that he gets this woman who is notorious in the city for being the most hard ass code enforcement person on the planet. And I mean, this woman is mean.
she
And
has this vibe of having it out for him for
yeah,
God knows why.
I think she just has it out for everybody. And so she's like laying the smackdown on him, and she's closed down the entire place, and nobody can live here anymore, and any of this kind of stuff. So we go from this nice, relaxed, we can deal with this as soon as we're back to Sweden, find ourselves the perfect place to live, to, oh shit.
Oh shit.
Yes.
Yes.
Then 2 days later, I wake up and I'm not feeling so good.
Well, I think we're waiting around for some details on like, are we gonna have like a month to just like slowly get our stuff into storage? Are we gonna be able to maybe move into the front part of the property somehow? Are we gonna be able to work this out? So everything is there are so many questions at that point. And I think the stress just started to pull him under. And I think the day after this whole incident started to snowball, he said, I think I feel a little feverish. And I'm like, you don't, you're to touch him, he didn't feel feverish. And we just kind of chalked it up to the stress of the release of the stress from getting a couple answers sorted out that evening. If only it had been that, right? Because then we get up the next day and he's just rushed with unwellness and we have no idea what's going on. I'm like, we pull out our COVID tests and half of them are expired at this point because they've been sitting in our cabinet a while. And he takes one and it comes back positive. And we're like, how? I mean, we've done a couple things unmasked in the past couple months. Like we went to the martial arts symposium. Nobody got sick after that as far as we know. And more recently, like last week, we went downtown to run errands, do some grocery shopping, get some dinner. We were masked for most of that, but we forgot to mask, say, in the grocery store. Like our minds are kind of getting out of this like hunker down mentality. So we're
We
slipping
lost
up.
the necessary
Yeah.
paranoia.
Yeah. And that is how we caught it, you know, just those slip up moments. And like, we have other health issues that have made us very self-protective. um so while other people might feel like there are risks they're willing to take on a more consistent basis, similar to what we did with this martial arts symposium, the you know, that's not the degree of exposure we wanted all the time. So like I said, we've been pretty self-protective even now 4 years in. But even just like exposure on the sidewalk, I guess, or in the grocery store or at the restaurant, whatever it might have been, as tiny and brief as it was enough for one of us to catch it, and then maybe
Pass it
both
to
of
the
us
other
to
one.
catch it. One of us catches it, passes it to the other. We have no idea. So thankfully, I was able to take care of him that first couple days. But I mean, we were just like, oh no, because we knew that we had to, at this point, have our shit all packed up within like a week and a half or less. We had no idea when this woman was coming back because she needs to do some kind of reinspection, and we had determined that it was not in anyone's best interest for us to be here anymore. So, it was just like, could there have been worse timing? And we didn't know how bad our illness was going to get. So he caught it first. I take care of him for a couple days.
And you got it.
2 days after, I am just struck down, and we, you know, neither of us can go anywhere. We have to rely on our friends who live nearby, who also have shit going on for themselves. It was it was like a gaping maw of unknowns on top of the stress of not feeling good and wondering how bad it's going to get. So, yeah, do you want to pick up from there? I don't, you know.
Sorry, I fell asleep.
Oh.
Um, yeah, so here we are. And when this sort of thing happens, you feel helpless, right? That's one of the qualities of when hazard gets you, is this sense of there's nothing I can do. And
Yeah, we really could do nothing because we both know and have been told that one of the keys to getting through COVID without having rebounds and like long COVID and all that is to enforce rest. So even though we had all these things we were anxious to go start doing, we didn't have the energy to do it, or knew that we had to force ourselves not to do it.
yeah. And so when this happens, you actually have a choice. One is that you can fall into despair. And this is the only reason we're giving you all of this detail, is so that you have a sense of choices that can be made no matter what. And falling into despair is a common situation. I have a friend who, God hates my friend. I mean, God wakes up in a bad mood and he takes it out on my buddy. Seriously. And consequently, he tends to fall into despair a lot, because it's like, oh my God, why am I getting my ass kicked? Um,
What spirit have I not appeased?
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
What God
yeah.
have I offended? And in situations like his, it's really hard to stay out of despair. We didn't have it that bad. I mean, what's bad? But the thing is, there's this other thing that you can do. And it's incredibly hard. And that is to allow the situation to be as it is, to surrender to it, and to operate with what you were given. And that's, trust me, it's really hard, but it is necessary if you want to get through hazard. And we were able to overcome our problems so far, inshallah, knock on wood, all of that kind of stuff. But we have managed to work everything out so that I think we have avoided the worst outcomes. And it, and it wasn't because we did anything in particular, it was because we surrendered to the situation, and that allowed options to emerge.
Yeah, I mean, the thing we did was, as those, we put thought into it, but it wasn't like perseverating. It was like, okay, I have a little bit of energy today to go on Airbnb and see what's available and make a list, but not make any, snap judgments. It was like settling into the process of, like you said, letting things emerge. And it's not that we did not have niggling moments of despair, because I know those were there. I don't think I felt them very strongly because my focus was on, don't get too upset because that's going to hamper your healing, But we had to remind each other, this isn't personal. We did not do anything to deserve this or call this to ourselves or anything like that. Like, getting COVID is given the precautions that we took and the slip ups that we made, chance was in play.
Yeah. And it was inevitable at some point that we would get
Yeah,
COVID.
exactly. You can't outrun this shit forever. Like, we just gotta make our peace with that. So it's a good thing we got it now, not 3 years from in the past,
Yeah.
But
And it's a good thing that we got it now rather than 2 weeks from now.
Alhamdulillah. Yes. Oh, so grateful for that. Yes. And God willing, we'll be stronger for it immunity wise.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had to maintain that sense that this was not personal. And if anything, like, shit like this keeps us humble. It allows us to continue to learn and to grow. And how can you, I mean, at least for me, I'm still growing as a teacher, so I need to be tested to a certain extent. So this is a learning opportunity, and as Mushtaq said, you can choose how you respond to things like this.
Yeah. Sometimes that's your superpower.
Yeah.
The ability to respond consciously to a situation, no matter how bad it is, uh, gives you agency over that situation. And I always remind myself that I ain't Viktor Frankl, right? Y'all know who Viktor Frankl is. Yeah. So he's a psychologist, and he was in a Nazi internment camp in World War II. And he watched people around him drop like flies. He was a very young man at the time, and um, he wrote some books afterwards. He's considered one of the fathers of humanistic psychology and that sort of thing. And looking at how people deal with life when it is just horrendous, and the difference between falling apart and falling together. And so, this is the problem of Job. You all know the story of Job or Ayub.
I was thinking about Job this morning. Yeah, tell the story.
So here's Job. He's a righteous guy. And one day, Satan comes to God and says, "Hey, your servant down there, he's only righteous because you have treated him so nice. And if you didn't treat him nice, he would not like you so much." And so God says, "Hold my beer." And proceeds to kick the crap out of Job. I mean, you want to talk about hazard. Everything in this poor guy's life goes completely off the rails. And still, he's not hating on God. And he's not even asking for God to lay off of him. He is just patiently enduring and doing his practice. Now they say, I mean, there's different versions of the story. And they say that, Job was afflicted with these diseases and everything. And finally, the penultimate disease is creeping towards his heart, this massive infection. And then finally, Job makes a prayer to God saying, "God, please do not destroy my capacity to love you." At which point, God lays off Job and everything is made all better again and the like. But the importance of the story of Job is not that God is going to kick your ass, but it is how to endure the hazard of the world. How to keep your own center and keep your focus when everything around you is falling apart. And unfortunately, we all get to experience that. And we will all experience it more than once in our lifetime. And every time, every time it hits, it's a surprise. And you go, "Wait, what?" And you look at it and go, there is nothing that can change this. This is inevitable. And that's one of the qualities of hazard, is that it is utterly inevitable.
Yeah. And I know some of us hate this, this phrase, this redundant phrase, "it is what it is." But this is one of those moments where it kind of makes sense to say that.
So now our story is all terrible and sad and everything. And if we had any sense, we would have started a GoFundMe now. And this would be the point where we made the pitch and you send us all your money and life is better. But we didn't do that. So what we're going to do instead is tell you how, when hazard hits your life, you can weather it. And that is literally by surrender. By going, yeah, there is nothing I can do. And this is the classic, "into thy hands, my Lord, I commit my life."
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And then you do your due diligence.
I'm glad you brought that up. Before we get to that, I'm going to put a little pin in that due diligence. James, I saw you had your hand up earlier. Did you want to share something?
Yeah, I hope it doesn't derail things a bit, though. It's just when you talk about Viktor Frankl and how he survived the camps, one thing also struck me in his account was not just surviving the camps, but flourishing afterwards.
Yeah, which he did.
He talked about
Absolutely.
I was him or someone else, but two people walking through a field, and they came across a bed of, I don't know, dandelions or daffodils or something. And one of them reacted by saying, "Well, everything was taken away from me in the camps. Now I'm going to take something." He starts stamping on the daffodils and wrecking them. The other guy says, No. We're supposed to value things. That's the lesson of the camps." And there seemed to be this it wasn't a parable, it was an actual event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This it's not just what happens to you, but I won't say frame it, but how much resentment you carry through into the rest of your life. So when you were talking about Frankel, I had an urge to start talking about that. I hope I didn't derail
No,
things.
it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
It will hopefully inspire somebody who's listening to this to go read him.
Man's Search for Meaning. Great book,
Yeah.
short book. Very confronting. You know, its description of life in the camps doesn't pull any punches, but great stuff.
He's an amazing writer. Yeah, so definitely worth reading. Thank you, James. And resentment, I think that's oh man, that can slow us down on so many levels and keep us wrapped up in our own shit for decades if we're not careful.
Yeah, in some ways, the most poisonous question you can ask in this situation is, why is this happening to me?
Yeah, why me?
And the answer is, why not you? Are you so special that you get out of this with no hazard in your life? No. And it happens to everybody. And if you don't get that, your life becomes toxic. Like there's a classic movie trope in Western movies from the 30s and 40s and 50s of the guy who's angry with God. Yeah, and the most classic version of it is some guy, he gets married, he loves his wife dies. And the guy is angry at God for the rest of his life because God took his wife away. And I mean, even as a kid, I looked at that and went, why should he be special? God takes everybody away. You have a bullseye painted on your forehead, and God's got the bullet with your name on it. And there is no way out of that in this universe. And so being angry with the universe, resenting all of this sort of stuff is a poison that we give ourselves. And it should be avoided at all costs. So,
Amen.
you have to surrender to what is. You have to allow everything to be as it already is and not try and change the past in some way so that the present is now different, because that ain't going to work.
It's a waste of your time. It's a waste of your energy. It's a waste of your strength. So why bother, right? Just, if you have to spend a couple moments on that, feel your feels. Don't totally snuff them out because they may have something to tell you, but you can't live there. You have to let them go. Use them as fuel for moving forward.
Yeah. So that being said, your next move is due diligence.
Yeah, we've done a whole talk on that.
Yeah, we did a couple of talks on that.
Yeah,
that was like a two-parter, as I remember.
I think it was in the context of the Enneagram.
Yeah, we did The Secret.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, the real secret.
Deconstructing the secret, basically. But I mean, let's just talk about it in everyday terms. So.
Yeah. So if you want help from the universe, you have to look at your situation and go, what can I do to change this? What resources do I have? What is available to me? And you have to do those things, even when it's not much. I mean, during this, literally the most I could do was look at Airbnbs that we could stay in for 2 weeks while we're waiting to take off to Sweden, and then figure out how to pay for it.
And take a nap because it wore you out.
Yeah, there was a lot of taking naps in between
Yeah,
that,
I
but
mean, he would be up for a little bit and then go lie down again, and that was our way of keeping him afloat. And
yeah,
while you were sick and you needed quiet time, and before I got sick, what I had to do was go for like a 2-hour walk. I needed that. And that allowed me to have to get out of my own head, to go see beautiful things by the bay and come back refreshed.
yeah, and um, interestingly, just through doing that, we were able to work things out so that we are safe, so that our belongings will be protected. And we have no idea what we're going to do when we come back from Sweden. Still
No.
working on that. Totally no idea. And I'm okay with that right now. By the time we
Yeah.
leave, I will have more of an idea of what we're going to do.
And you know, I definitely have a lighter heart about this now. In fact,
Yeah,
I think as soon as we started looking at Airbnbs, and I thought, okay, there's semi-reasonable options. We're not, I mean, my mom is not, she's very sweet, but she's not the most tactful person. So she said something along the lines of like, "Are you gonna be homeless?" And imagine this in like, you know, slightly tech inept mom chat speak. So I had to laugh at that, and I'm like, I'm not worried about that. Like, this is gonna get sorted out one way or another. And I have to reassure those close to me that we have things, we can't say under control because as we've just discussed,
yeah. Nothing is under control, but we are
yeah,
surfing it quite nicely so far.
exactly, yeah, and it feels good, honestly. I mean, that's where I'm at. It feels good to be where we're at now, even with the unknowns.
Yeah. And we should not discount the fact that whole piles of people have been making prayers for us and wishing us well. This also helps.
It really does. Yeah. It's one thing to throw around the phrase, you know, thoughts and prayers. And when it's just meaningless words, yeah, it's bullshit that does nothing. But we have felt the support of the people around us, and um the care and the sense of sharing the burden, sharing the load. You know, not to be too corny about it, but we feel held by that, and it really does help. Someone just started sawing things. I hope no one can
Yeah.
hear that.
Oh, I could hear it. So this is what hazard looks like.
Yeah.
And I'm sure every single one of you has been there. That oh shit moment when you realize that life has inexorably changed and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
And there is always something that you can do about it. Sometimes it's very small, but one of the greatest of all of the sayings that has come out of the Arab world is trust in Allah, but tie your camel. And that tying the camel part is really important. And that's where the due diligence comes in that gets you out of these situations.
Sometimes it really is as simple as I think it's, most beneficial for me to take a nap or to do a soothing breath practice, like our fundamental breath, hint, 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 hint. Or,
Yes.
okay, I'm going to go journal for 15 minutes. Just something to keep you moving, metaphorically.
And there was silence.
James, did you have a thought, Mushtaq?
Oh, sorry.
It's okay,
No,
James.
go ahead,
No,
James.
yeah. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't interrupting some kind of thing that
What,
would
me
slip.
think?
Yeah.
An assumption I'm going on is the difference between allowing everything to be as it is, which you have to include emotionally as well, and a kind of grim, lockjawed stoicism with resentful assumptions underlying it. Sort of, this thing happening to me is terrible, but I will, I will endure it. Which is kind of the attitude I was actually brought up on.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas
Medi.
allowing everything to be as it is, Ajashanti, that seems to be more of an awareness as well as an action, like a quality of awareness, and not the sort of defensive, locked up posture. Is that fair?
Yeah.
I mean, I've
Yeah,
not read the
the
Stoics, so I don't
phrase,
know.
yeah, the phrase "allow everything to be as it is" is something that I totally stole from Adyashanti, because I think it is the absolute best description of what meditation actually is. And it is a position of non-resistance. It's total Wu Wei. It is the doing through not doing. It is, this is the universe. This is how it is. As opposed to resisting it. It's like, it is so miserable to get yourself locked into a resistant attitude to what is, that it's literally no fun at all. And if you find yourself on the Titanic and the boat is sinking, you can run around and scream, or you can figure out how to get onto a lifeboat, or if nothing else, you can sing rounds. So, thoughts. People have thoughts. I can tell you have thoughts. I can see the thought bubbles above your head.
I can call on people. Oh, okay. Osama.
Hello. Well, sorry first for my camera decided to stop working, so that might be a hazard.
No
but
worries.
No worries,
Yeah.
though. It's fine.
Thank you for taking the time out of the craziness to still host this call. How does one, or what's the difference between a hazard that is, let's say, a cause of nature kind of a thing, like, oh, a tree fell on my roof and there's nothing really that I could have done I could do about it, and I've been thinking actually about cutting that tree down for some time, but I haven't got to it. I know it's a little bit dead. And then here goes falling on the roof. Is there some subtle differences in approach, maybe not in the moment of the hazard, but after, to recognize
Well,
do I actually
definitely
put myself in that position?
yeah, definitely there's a little bit of that. There's going to be a learning curve on that one if you knew that the tree was old and dead and you didn't do anything about it. In the end, it's all the same hazard. You know, the tree fell. You made choices up until the point where the tree fell, regardless of whether you knew it was bad or not.
Who could have known the time that it fell, right?
Yeah.
And that's where the trust or the surrender comes into play at that moment, to like, okay, this is what it is right
Yes.
now. Mhm.
And you
Exactly
could be
right.
like, yeah, and you could spend time being like, I knew this was gonna happen. I knew it was gonna happen and I didn't do anything about it. It's my fault. Like,
Yeah.
how does that help you?
Mhm.
And the answer is it doesn't help you.
Yeah, I think that's that's the struggle for me at some points, now that I look back at certain points where, is always you're like, okay, how can I learn from this experience? And I've heard that so much that becomes the first thought, rather than the surrender being the first action.
Yeah.
So as soon as something bad happens, or a hazard, I'm in a situation, I go first into solving mode. How can I solve it right away so that I'm out of it? And that tends to be, I create in that solving, I'm creating that pattern again. I go into the same pattern, 3 years later. So I think that pause, or that surrender piece, that's definitely very helpful. And for me personally, it can be somewhat of a challenge to truly surrender.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I can say, oh, I surrender to it, but to truly surrender, and then move from that space and say, okay, now it's the due diligence part. Now I'm gonna go tie the camel. Now,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, I don't know if we would call this, I don't know, some kind of bypassing moment where we want to bypass the need to just be in it with
Yeah.
problem solving mode. And
And
sometimes you can't solve what's already happened in as far as like switching the time that it happened. Like it is what it is. And the first step, as you say, Osama, is to just kind of have the experience, be in the experience, allow it to happen. Oh shit, this crisis has emerged. I guess we could call it that, because sometimes it feels like that in the moment. And not immediately go to, okay, what can I do differently next time, to, yeah, being in that peace, being in that surrender. Then you can move to, okay, how do I resolve this problem both now and in the future?
yeah, and that's the thing, is that sometimes, especially with really good hazard, the problem is insoluble. It can't be fixed. Literally, the process breaks down. If you look at it on an Enneagram, you have a catastrophic failure of the process. It's not just, oh, I blew the shock point and I'm going to have to recycle back and take another run at it. It's the process has ended and it is unrecoverable. If you work with, or if you used to work with computers, I haven't seen this message in a long time, but you used to get occasionally on the screen, unrecoverable error.
Right.
Yeah, and then your computer completely collapses and shuts down and you get the blue screen of death and all of that sort of thing. But yeah, there are unrecoverable errors. Sometimes the process collapses. And when it does, if you do anything other than surrender to what actually is, you're going to make yourself more miserable than you need to be.
You're gonna make yourself crazy trying to relive it over and over again, perhaps.
Yeah.
Trying to fix it. There's nothing to fix.
Yeah, cannot be fixed. Inexorably broken. And so you have to know how to pick up the pieces from there and move on.
Yeah.
That was helpful. Thank you. And as you were sharing, Noor, I had this visual of skydiving, like jumping off of the plane, and there's this period of free fall before the parachute is out. And that's the for me personally, like I said, going into these going through these moments, it feels like I just want to open the parachute right away.
Mm-hmm.
But there's that free fall, that's that trust, that's that surrender period.
Yeah.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
And then if the chute doesn't open, you are in a balanced position to start tearing at your emergency chute frantically.
Yeah. Yep.
Yusuf, you look like you're thinking things.
Always. Yeah, I don't know. I think I fall a lot. I can kind of sometimes just go between apathy and like distinguish this between apathy. Like sometimes I felt like this has always been a thing for me ever since I was a kid. That, oh, this happened? Cool. And I feel like sometimes I go too far in this direction where
Yeah, that can ruin it for you.
be very indifferent towards things instead of yeah, there is a level of like acceptance, and I know when I'm accepting something and it's like, all right, this is what the situation is. All right, now what are you gonna do? Versus sometimes
Just like
whatever happened, cool. And
fuck it.
life
Yeah.
goes on. It is what it is to that extent. That's something I've noticed with myself.
Yeah, that's an interesting distinction. How do you feel? I guess it depends on what's happening, but what do you feel is like the qualitative difference between when you are like, whatever, and when you're like, wow, okay, uh, this sucks, but I get it, and I'm gonna just accept it.
Responsibility, or that's the main distinction, responsibility or ownership. But I don't know. Sometimes it does seem, because sometimes it really is like everything is gonna work out exactly how it's supposed to, and you can trust that
Mhm.
and not worry about it, and just say, all right, this will take its course. But yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I just don't. I'm not taking. I make that as an excuse. So yeah, just not doing the responsibility part, not doing the. No, you do have to actually be honest with yourself and do everything you have to. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting distinction, and I definitely invite everyone who's listening to kind of sit like with that and see how that shows up for them. You know, that difference between these two states of mind where it's like you're engaged or disengaged, essentially. Yeah. Thank you, Yusa. That was a really good, you know, little nuance to this that I think is very interesting for us to think about too. Oops. Lavita, how about you?
My kids have heard me say this new phrase that's turned up in the past few years. Okay, so this is what we're doing now.
Yes.
Yes.
You know, and that's not what the plan was. It's not what I thought about when I was looking towards, okay, what could go wrong? What could I do or whatever? And then some new fresh hell pops up and you're like, all right, this is what we're doing now. We're doing this thing now. And maybe we can get back to that other thing. But what really comes to mind is, I don't remember the movie, but it's the movie where it's a Star Trek movie where the next gen crew crashes the Enterprise E. And the Enterprise E gets hit with something, I think a blast of energy or something, and it's doing like this toward the planet, and everybody's, you know, out of their seats because seatbelts aren't a thing. And Data crawls toward the navigation display and he pulls himself up and he looks over the edge at the view screen and you see the planet coming up at speed. And he goes, oh shit. And at that time in my life, I had a house full of little kids and I did not let them watch anything that had cursing in it. And I didn't know that particular bit was in there. And I was like, and they all looked at me and was like, that's an oh shit moment. You know, like if you're going to curse, that's the time to do it. So that's what I think about, like when things start happening, it's like, you know, part of me is like, this is what we're doing now. And part of me is like raging at, you know, I had plans and this was not in the plan. And I thought I accounted, you know, but that's not how it works, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So I can laugh about it now, but the next time it comes up, I'll be in the closet quietly banging my head against the wall.
Oh, I know. I totally feel you. And sometimes I think there's definitely something to that where it's like there's an attachment to the plan as it is.
Yeah. Somebody
And
said,
go ahead. Yeah.
no, I was just gonna say, somebody said, there's two things. One is life is what happens when you're making other plans. And the other one is we make our plans and God just laughs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, you know, those feelings you're talking about, feel them to the degree that they're I'm saying this to all of us, including myself. Feel them to the degree that they are quote unquote real, you know, in the moment. But then after that, we can't hold on to them in the sense of this attachment where it's like, but that was my plan and I deserved to have my plan, god damn it, and you took it from me and I'm upset about that. Like, it's time to pivot now.
I'm feeling attacked.
No, I understand. I do. It's so frustrating, and it's kind of, it's like a little death if we're really attached to the plan, because it's like, no, this was not how it was supposed to go.
Okay. So I think the only
Yeah.
person we haven't heard from is Malu. That's right. We're looking right at you.
Yeah, I think I could make a whole album about things not going as planned right now. But I don't know. It often like things don't go as I plan them when I actually felt like they shouldn't go how I planned them, but I didn't dare to like stand up for that or say no to something that rationally looks good or seems good, but it doesn't. The intuition is saying, actually, it's not this. And then life comes and it's like, it's not this. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's an interesting spin on it too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
There's a story came to mind. I don't know if I can get it together. Yeah. But I might try if you want to.
Yeah, give it your best shot.
So there's the wise teacher walking around with a student. They are walking somewhere and then they need a place to sleep. And then they knock at the door of someone. And there's this guy opening the door. And he's doing well and he gives them some room and lets them sleep there. And then when they leave, the teacher has some magical powers. And he says, like, in the next year, your income will double. And everything you have will basically double. And then they continue on. And the next day they knock at the door and it's a very poor guy. And he gives them the food he has and doesn't eat that evening and lets them sleep in his bed. And when they leave there, the teacher gives the spell of his cow dying, and that was the last thing he had. And then they continue on, and after a while, the student he has to ask, he's like, why did you treat them so unfairly? And the teacher said the cow was the last thing the poor guy was attached to. So, yeah.
Rough.
Yeah.
It's rough. Thank you for sharing, Nomalu.
Yeah, and right now it feels like this, like we're trying to sell our van right now, and as
You've
soon
been
as
doing that for a while.
yeah, we've
That's
been
the
there for a
thing.
while. But also for the longest time we've been attached to the outcome, to having the money and then being able to buy things so then we can be fine. And it's feeling right now like we're not doing that anymore, and it also seems much more likely that we will actually sell it. But now I'm like, I don't know what I would do with that money now. where when we first wanted to sell it, I was really, we need to sell it because we need that money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now
makes
I
sense.
know I could use it for some things, but like it doesn't have the charge anymore.
Yeah. Yep. And that's probably wise, but I do hope that you guys get to sell it sooner rather than later, because I know that's been kind of an albatross for you guys.
Yeah, it will happen one day. We meet funny people who do funny things.
Yay, good. Thanks, Malou.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're going to need to wrap this up now.
I would like to, we have a comment from James. Is that okay if we answer that?
Yeah,
take off?
but in a few minutes, I'm going to go.
I hear you. I'll carry this last bit if I can.
Carry this last bit.
All right. So, James asks, isn't due diligence also an aspect of surrender? Surrendering to the body-mind's instinct to act? Revering that instinct as part of the total moment one is surrendering to? Once mindfulness of the moment has been established. So, yeah, again, my brain is getting a little slow too, but let's see if we can parse this out. Thank you, James, for the question. Due diligence as an aspect of surrender. Yeah, I mean, I would say so. It's a responsiveness. You use that sense of surrender to move you through the responsiveness.
Yeah,
That's how I
and
see
it's
it.
due diligence is an understanding of what you can do. The story that taught me due diligence, and I've told it before and I'm going to tell it now because I'm old and I get to repeat myself, is the story of my teacher's teacher, whose name was Ali Baba. Ali Baba was an old dervish in Istanbul. And his teacher called him in one day and he said, Ali Baba, they like you in Ankara. And that means go to Ankara. And Ali Baba says, Eyvallah, of course, as God wills. And so he goes down, he gets a bedroll, and he goes down to the train station. And he sits there because he has no money. He has nothing, right? And he just sits there, and finally a man, a stranger, walks up and says, well, what are you doing sitting here? And he says, I am waiting for a ticket to Ankara because God wants me there, and all I can do is get myself to the train station. That was his due diligence. He knew he could get himself to the train station, and then God was going to have to provide from that. So the guy buys him a ticket, and he spends like a month traveling around Ankara and other places. And the only thing is that he never had a chance to use the bedroll because he always was given a bed, which was his reminder to really trust when you do this. And he was just stuck carrying around this worthless bedroll.
Yeah, so I think people kind of get stuck on the part where it's like, oh, but everybody just like gave him stuff. But he did what he could, and the universe met him halfway. I like to use that phrase.
Yeah,
You step
and
up
that's
and follow through as far as you can go.
And that's what due diligence is you do everything that you can, and you don't expect the universe to help you out until you have taken care of every bit that you can take care of. There are no free lunches. You got to work for it. But once you've done the work, then you trust that the little bits will get filled in.
Yeah. So I want to refer back to the Tower card, that feeling of terror that it brings up for people. But but I have to admit that when I see it, I see the opportunity for clearing the path for rebirth, for starting anew, for rebuilding. And that's why hazard itself is a beautiful thing, because it's a two-sided coin. Yes, it can fuck you up, but it also creates the opportunity for the new. And we have to remember that when we're going through it. So I guess we can end there. Let's go to Brady Bunch mode.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you for being here. It's so good to see you all. It's good to let you all know we're alive.
Yes.
We're doing okay. And we will see you this evening if you make it there too. I guess we can wave to each other and wave to everybody watching on their replay, and we will see you soon. Bye.
Bye.